Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to give this just another minute or two for folks that are beginning to sign on, and we'll get started. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Blake Baldwin, and I'm the Director of Operations for NCW Tech Alliance. Just for everyone's awareness, this is going to be a recorded session so we can share with our membership following the presentation today. I would like to welcome you all to our Business Bytes. This is part of our members only series and which shares important tools and resources for businesses in North Central Washington. But before we get started, I would be remiss not to mention some of NCW Tech's upcoming events and programs. So this Friday, April 29th at 12 p.m., NCW Tech is hosting our monthly industry tour. And this month's tour is out in Moses Lake at Automated Ag. Automated Ag has 53,000 square feet of space that's designed for manufacturing 11 different agriculture machines. Their construction process and new assembly lines are strategically structured to build and create innovative and unique harvesting systems. So please join us. Then next Thursday, May 5th, we'll be setting up shop at the Apple Blossom Beer Garden in Memorial Park in Wenatchee. And this is to host our monthly happy hour. These are fun get-togethers. They're strictly for the purpose of networking, meeting new people. And the best part is that the first beer is on us. So we hope to see you there. And then on Monday, May 16th, we're also hosting our website program. This is at the Mercantile in Wenatchee. This is a free class and resource where digital instructors teach small business owners about the basics of designing, creating, and maintaining their first website or an existing site. And at the end of the day, you will have this website built, or at least a scaffolding for it, and then be assigned a tech volunteer who can help you through the process of launching that site. And then last, we are hosting the Flywheel Investment Conference in Wenatchee on May 18th and 19th. Flywheel is an investment competition where startup businesses pitch their products and services to investors in front of a live audience. And on May 18th is the first night, we're hosting a VIP reception where you can meet the top finalists and hear their pitches from 4 companies. And then the main competition will feature 6 companies on May 19th, and that's where those companies will compete for up to $325,000 in investment awards. So to learn more about these and to register for these events, please visit ncwtech.org. Now I want to move on to today's program. Joining us as today's speaker is Maileen Hamto. Maileen is the Director of Programs and Strategy Enablement for the Washington Technology Industry Association's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Center of Excellence. In her role, Maileen is responsible for developing programs and services for partner organizations at various stages of their DEI journey. She has more than 20 years of experience in strategic DEI communications and program implementation, serving as an in-house DEI resource in technology, healthcare, government, and higher education. So today, Maileen will present on the challenges and opportunities of developing a DEI strategy that highlights change leadership. She'll be sharing trends related to diversity recruitment, hiring, retention, and advancement of tech workers from diverse backgrounds. So with that, I'd like to extend NCW Tech's warmest welcome to Maileen and hand the floor over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Blake and Shanae, for the invitation today. Really eager to share the DEI Center of Excellence, our work, and some trends that we're seeing in the DEI space. I wanted to start with, let me go ahead and share my screen, with the mission and vision for the DEI Center of Excellence and why we are here and providing information about, again, trends. And later on, we'll be talking about services as well. But I just wanted to quickly go over the mission for the DEI Center of Excellence, which is to lead and support the creation of anti-racist multicultural organizations where equity is deeply rooted and sustained in our workplaces and the communities we serve. As mentioned, I will be going over some of the products and services that we have available for companies of different sizes, but we wanted to start with kind of setting the stage for the work that we're doing in the different industries that we work in. So if we look back to the state of the world just over 2 years ago, it's safe to say that we are operating in a new reality. And as we've seen through the pandemic, we are now in a post-pandemic scenario. Business models have changed. Consumers, workers, and companies have definitely shifted expectations and habits, and whole industries have been upended. And by all accounts, the changes that we're seeing will continue to persist and will need to be embraced. And so just with this backdrop and background, we've seen that companies that prioritize their employee experience were the ones that fare better and continue to navigate the changes in an effective way. So we know in the tech industry that the demand for technical talent has significantly increased. So with software and technology becoming critical for all businesses throughout the economy, there's a war for top talent that is growing even more fierce. It's not just tech companies competing against one another for quality talent. There are other industries that are also looking to onboard tech talent to accelerate their organizational digital transformation. And we're finding that a lot of these companies are actually capturing a larger share of the tech talent. And so this has been the trend for a while, but it's continuing to accelerate. So in 2019, even before the COVID-19 pandemic, we found that more than 40% of software engineer and developer hires were being made by non-tech companies. So, and that was up from about a third in 2010. And this is according to research by Bain & Company in their analysis of US data. And we also found that there's competition even more between enterprise tech companies. And because during the pandemic, these are the companies that overall increased their hiring in comparison to small and medium-sized tech businesses. And so just a quick recap, over the past decade, many tech startups have been increasing the size of their software engineering and developer staffs. And the size has really increased by nearly 60% each year. And the fastest hiring pace among tech and non-tech companies, and this is according to, again, research by Harvard Business Review. So I want to note that the level of demand for technology talent has led to a market that is more favorable towards the employee, and where more power and options are in the hands of the employees than ever before. And so with this new level of empowerment, COVID, everything else that's happening, we know that employees are quitting their jobs in higher numbers than ever before. Many of you may have heard of the term the Great Resignation or the Big Quit. So in a survey of about 1,200 tech and IT workers in the US, that was conducted late last year, nearly 3/4, or about 72%, said that they intended to quit within the next year. And the primary reason isn't simply about pay or about compensation. 41% of tech workers noted that well-being is their primary reason for leaving their job in 2021, according to the CNBC Workforce Survey. And based on a recent study published by MIT, the biggest predictor of employee resignations was a toxic culture. And so a toxic culture, or a toxic work culture, is by far the strongest predictor. And it is, it's about 10 times more important than compensation in predicting turnover. And so what does toxic mean exactly? So the authors of the study explain that the main elements of a toxic culture include failure to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and workers feeling disrespected, as well as observing unethical behavior and not being able to do anything about it. So with that backdrop in mind, I wanted to provide some space for audience participation. So in chat, if you could just jot down a quick response to this question, which is, if you can share how your company has adapted its recruitment strategies to stay more competitive in this current market, this current job market, where employees or prospective candidates have more choices and are therefore looking at things like climate, like work culture, et cetera, in considering, where to work. So yeah, if you could just put that in chat and we can all share that. Again, if your company has adapted its recruitment strategies to stay more competitive, and if so, what are some of those strategies? I'll pause here for a few seconds and then we'll move on to the next slide. Well, so as we mentioned before, employees are seeking workplaces that contribute to their overall well-being and where their values are honored. And there's also opportunity for growth and training, and as well as flexibility related to how and where they work. So it's important that tech companies must prioritize these employee concerns or risk being disrupted. Or not being able to attract the talent that is needed. And as was mentioned in the studies that were cited earlier, DEI has become quite important to the tech talent pool, and that's what they're looking for in terms of the organizations that they want to work with. I also want to note that DEI are some of the key elements to an employee's well-being. So in another study, we learned that 80% of tech workers stated that they want to work for a company that values DEI. Again, this is a survey that was conducted in 2021 after the racial reckoning that we saw back in 2020. And all of that interest in DEI has been sustained over the last couple of years and continuing to grow. Nearly 70% of workers that are polled in a built-in survey have cited that having clear anti-harassment, anti-discrimination policies are almost just as important as far as compensation and professional development. So this is not breaking news. We know that leaders of the largest tech companies know this and have been deploying resources to shore up their DEI strategy. And cumulatively, we've learned that tech giants, about 42 of the largest tech companies surveyed by Fast Company, have committed a total of about 3.8 billion toward DEI in 2020 and 2021 in various forms. And even with large financial commitments, as well as engaging in DEI training, the largest tech companies are wrestling to move the dial on DEI. And we have another opportunity to participate in chat here. Let's see, we have a response to the first question. Thank you, Andrew, for noting. And this next question is about making sure, let me just note here. How is your company integrating a focus on DEI in its operations? And if your company isn't already thinking of DEI, you may also note that. But if there's any movement toward, a DEI function or perhaps a DEI committee or employee resource group, you may mention that as well. I'll pause here for a few seconds and again, invite you to write in chat, how is your company integrating a focus in its DE in its operations? And as you're thinking about that question, I also wanted to move on with our conversation here. So we know that the work of DEI is challenging because there is a gap between tech company effort as well as employee sentiment. And we've seen this with many of our partner organizations that they've shared that sometimes moving the needle, moving the dial in DEI can be paralyzing, can be overwhelming. And I want to cite another study that only 9% of tech company employees feel that their company had effective DEI efforts. And this was a survey back in 2021. There's a major chasm between the money that's being spent in DEI and also the ways that companies have attempted to fix the problem. And given that we know that DEI is incredibly important to tech workers, this is a major obstacle, specifically because 88% of Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and other people of color employees view DEI as an important factor, again, when considering which company to work for. And it was 78% for employees that identify as white. So both folks that are people of color as well as white employees value DEI and want to work for a company that is also walking its talk in terms of advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. And so I just wanted to note here too that, as mentioned, DEI is very complex to navigate. And so when you're considering developing or implementing a DEI strategy within an organization, it's important to ensure that there's alignment of organizational values. For example, anti-racism policies, as well as developing a culturally accepting environment, right? It's not enough to simply focus on recruitment. It's also as important to focus on retaining the diverse the diverse employees that you are attracting to the organization. It's also important to note that having a leadership structure that is committed to prioritizing DEI is really important, and also being transparent and vulnerable in making sure that that this work moves forward. Perhaps there is an opportunity to reorganize or perhaps create recruitment and retention KPIs, focus on evolving practices and policies, making sure that they're aligned with DEI goals. This can all create friction within an organization. And so it's important to ensure that there are change management systems in place to support your employees if you are looking to develop and implement a DEI strategy moving forward. So I wanted to note that some of the work that we're doing with various organizations is developing developing their capacity to advance DEI in a meaningful way. There's definitely a right approach to DEI, implementing it thoughtfully, being careful to demonstrate the transformational benefits. But all of this, again, it can be really difficult, right? So companies that are building towards the workforce of the future can go on a more intentional, less risky journey by leveraging the skills and experiences of a strategic partner, for example, a consultancy or perhaps the WTIA DEI Center of Excellence, that can help you expand and enhance your ability to support the transitioning tech workforce. So what you see here is let's see, is a graphic of our pact signatories. So I mentioned earlier the Anti-Racism in Tech Pact that WTIA started back in 2020. What it is a public agreement and commitment with almost 100 CEOs of tech companies that are members or partners of WTIA. So these pact signatories have recognized that the tech sector creates millions of high wage and meaningful jobs across the US, right? So there are so many that more than 2 million jobs are unfilled. Yet overall, the ideal candidate has continued to be mostly white men. And so there's definitely a gap there. And there are Black, Indigenous, Latinx employees that gain access to jobs in tech. But what we found is that they also face an inhospitable environment at work, which is why they are more than 3 times as likely to quit compared to their white counterparts. And so we know that there is strength in numbers, and no one company or CEO can conquer or beat systemic racism or transform the industry alone. And so our success will only come when we plan, measure, learn, and grow together. I wanted to note that part of the work that we're doing with the Anti-Racism and Tech Pact signatories, as well as our partner organizations, is tools like the DEI Practices Survey. So before I move into describing some of the solutions that we have, I'd like to invite you to view a survey instrument that is focused on DEI programming. And I will put the link in chat, so you'll be able to click through it, and nothing that you need to fill out now, but it's the link is there for you. What I want to mention with this survey is that the questions align with the Anti-Racism and Tech Pact roadmap, the focus areas of recruitment, retention, and organizational development. And even if your company does not yet have DEI initiatives or programming, the questions in the survey may be able to give you some ideas about best practices and what needs to be in place to ensure that there is sustainability for DEI efforts when you do decide to focus on them. And so this survey is open until the end of May, and you will, if you decide to respond to it, you will have access to your own responses, as well as a high-level report that aggregates all survey responses once we've completed the analysis of the survey. And so also wanted to note that participants who take part in the survey will be invited to also be part of an in-depth study of institutional dynamics and leadership capabilities that contribute to success in advancing equity in the tech workplace. And the next phase of the study will actually occur in fall of this year and will involve one-on-one interviews in case you have an interest. And I know that we only have a few minutes left, so I just wanted to get through this and provide some time for any questions. So let me advance into DEI solutions for sustained impact. So I wanted to note that, the pact was the launching point. And so WTIA has developed a comprehensive solution, set of solutions to help with every tech company to reach their goals. And so our solutions focus on equipping leaders with the lens for diversity, equity, and inclusion. We start with focusing on self-examination, confronting natural bias, and then also developing strategies for leading through resistance and polarization. We also guide towards cultivating the ideal workplace for your tech workforce. We demonstrate how to retain employees by creating a culture rooted in principles and values that reflect a diverse employee population, a culture that honors feedback, that makes space for non-conforming ideas, and also celebrates employee well-being. We also understand the needs for the tech workforce of the future and helping you to develop a DEI strategy that embraces the shift of available talent in the tech ecosystem. I also wanted to note that with our focus on change management, we are leveraging Diversity Waymaker as a full spectrum DEI enablement platform, as well as a consultancy and coaching solution that can help to support your entire transformation effort. And we can share more about that partnership if you have any interest, but just wanted to highlight that this work is really focused on, again, starting with the leaders and helping them develop leadership skills in advance advancing DEI. And we covered topics like anti-racism and leadership, self-reconciliation, biases, connecting high-value competencies to DEI work. And we also focus on making sure that companies like yours have an understanding of the major challenges within the tech pipeline and provide you with skills and tools to ensure that you are retaining those top tech employees that you need to continue to grow your business. So with that, I'll pause here and see if there are any questions. So far, we have a few minutes left in our time together. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share about WTIA. We do have a questions here. What suggestions would you have for smaller companies to advance their DEI journeys? Right. My suggestion would be to start with sort of leadership training to ensure that everyone in the C-suite has sort of a common understanding about why DEI and why DEI is important to the organization, wherever it may be in its maturity stage. Really being able to really communicate that value with leadership, and also ensuring that leaders are all on the same page and have the same buy-in for what sort of for DEI strategies that will be implemented. That may look different for different organizations, but your example of less than 100 employees, that is actually the best time to look at, sort of your, the culture that you are, starting to cultivate within your organization, and ensuring that DEI is embedded in the culture early on, before, more people start joining the organization, and, really making sure that equity and inclusion are part of your organization's DNA, especially when you're at high growth stage.
Maileen, I have a question for you as we're waiting for other ones to come into the chat box here. The NCW Tech Board recently had a speaker come in and talk about ways that our board could do a better job at inclusive recruitment practices and equitable recruitment practices in North Central Washington. And one of the things that she recommended was for the board to take an unconscious bias quiz prior to any kind of training. Have you found these quizzes to be helpful or to be useful in helping employees or board members or individuals better understand their inherent biases that they may hold that might be unconscious of? And if so, do you have any recommended resources for these quizzes?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Harvard Implicit Bias test is free and available to everyone. Implementing that across the board is really important to provide some background, because even though there's a lot of literature around its effectiveness, and it's been around for a while, it still needs a little bit more context, especially for folks that may be on the cynical side, right? It's good to be cynical when it's comes to new information, and for us to be able to really test the science. And so I would say that, yes, the Harvard Implicit Association test is one place to start. There are other resources as well, and I can share later as well. But definitely that's a good start. Thank you, Blake, for sharing.
Thank you.
Great.
All right. Well, I don't see any other questions in here. So Maileen, I just want to say thank you so much on behalf of NCW Tech and our members for presenting to us today and having this very important conversation. And again, this is recorded, and so we'll be sharing out with our membership in the coming days. And thank you again so much, Maileen. It's been a pleasure speaking with you this afternoon, and we hope to see you again in the future.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Okay, bye.